Hey friends, welcome back to Wild Hearts Homestead. I'm Melissa and planting season is right around the corner. We started the greenhouse and I am so excited. I'm going to walk you through what we've done today and how we did our math. I knew I wanted a window greenhouse. My dad works construction and he often gets windows that are just headed for the dumpster anyways, so I started saving up windows from some of his projects. The first thing I need to do is measure all of my windows. Next, I'm going to sit down with some graph paper and I'm going to chart out all of the windows that I have stacked up in the garage. I know the approximate dimensions that I want for my greenhouse, but I need some more exact numbers before I start purchasing lumber to get started on this project. Next, I'm going to cut all these pieces out. I'm just going to play around with it for a little bit, try to see how they can fit together, how they can make the angles work that I want to fit into the size of the greenhouse that I would like, and see just how they would go. Here's my finished plan. It ended up being 104 inches across the front and back, and 114 inches on the sides. I added 4 inches to account for measuring from the middle of the posts. Once I knew where I wanted my greenhouse to be, I started by placing some T-posts in the ground and using a string to make sure they were mostly in line as best as I could tell with my eyes. Then I took 2 more T-posts and made them go at a T to make a cross in the string so I could check for square. Do you remember all that math in school that you thought you would never need? Here's where it comes in handy. Remember that a squared plus b squared equals c squared? That's how we're going to find our square for our greenhouse. So we have our cross between the strings from our T-post. An easy way to find a squared plus b squared equals c squared is to remember 6 foot, 8 foot, 10 foot. I'll show you how this works. So we're going to measure from our cross at our first string 6 feet out, and then we're going to measure the opposite direction 8 feet out, and then the diagonal of that should equal 10 foot. If this is off, you can adjust, and that will help you find your square. It's much easier to measure if you have a second person to help you, but if you're on your own and you don't have a second set of hands that can help you hold the tape measure, you can always use a brick to hold your tape measure in place. Looks good. Let's go. Now it's time to start digging some holes. Get your post hole digger and we're gonna start making some holes in the ground. It's a sweatpants kind of day, guys. Everybody needs a sweatpants day every now and then. Make sure you account for your posts. Make sure you have that extra inches in there for your posts when you're measuring the front and the sides of your greenhouse to make sure everything is lined up properly. If you're new to working with lumber, one thing you'll need to know is that the advertised sizes are not the same as the actual sizes. So these 4x4 posts are actually 3.5 by 3.5 approximately. You can count this as your arm workout for the day. It's almost time to call in the reinforcements. This is my dad. He helps me with a lot of projects here on my homestead. He's been doing construction longer than I've been alive, and his expertise is of our holes dug. We're going to check square again to make sure we're good. We measure from the outside of the holes and we do our square and make sure that the length and the width matches what we have planned. We had to make a few adjustments. We were a little bit off, but we just widened our holes so that we had some more play with our posts. All right, now to square it up, we're going to hold this at the end of the hole and measure. Real close, half inch.
Let's check it this end.
All right.
Yeah, that's about the same as that one measured.
Okay, cool.
So then you go to that corner, I'll check this. This is supposed to be what? So 118 plus. That's 21 wrong.
121 and a half.
Same way, do it over there, do the same thing, we'll take on the quarter, hold it the same way, we're good now.
The string is blowing a little bit, so it might be a little bit off.
I'm at 176, so we're about 3/8 out. It's a little longer this way than that.
So since it was just a tad off, we just widened this hole up a little bit more so we have some extra play to make sure everything fits perfectly. Okay, phew, we're finally putting our posts in the holes for real this time. A wise guy I know always says, measure twice, cut once. It's always better to measure, 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 and make sure it's right before you make it permanent. Good job! We ended up using almost 4 80-pound bags of concrete mix. I use these cat litter buckets for a lot of things on my homestead. I use them for hauling dirt, compost, all kinds of things. And today we're even using it for mixing concrete. If you can get your hands on some of these, they can be really handy. People just throw them out. It's another way to be frugal without having to buy expensive buckets. Plumbing your posts is another part that's going to be a lot easier if you have 2 people working together. But if you don't, you can use bracing to hold your posts in place while you put your concrete in around them to make sure your posts don't move on you. Our posts were staying solidly where we put them, so we didn't have to worry about bracing them as the concrete set. We used a piece of rebar to poke the concrete down to make sure there was no air bubbles underneath. That's all we're going to do today. So now I'm going to rinse off all of our tools and get everything picked up, do a couple final measurements, and then that's all we're going to do today until these posts set. Phew! Thanks for hanging in there with all the math today, guys. It's been really fun hanging out with you and putting together this first part of the greenhouse. I'll see you again for part 2. See you later.